Hey team, welcome to Benchmarked, the leadership, coaching, and mental performance podcast with Coach Mess and Coach LaRock. I am fired up for this one, Coach. Although this one, I have to admit, maybe a little bit out of my wheelhouse, is I was never much of a volleyball player. I was always the last pick for high school volleyball intramural stuff. I'm too short and I have absolutely zero vertical. And I remember my baseball coach said, Mess, when you jump, I could maybe slip a piece of paper under your feet. So this I'm going to have to rely on the volleyball experts for this one. So with us for this episode is a very special, talented, and successful athlete who has been a standout on both the national and world stages. As a beach volleyball star, she is a two-time All-American, a three-time NCAA champion with the USC Trojans, a U21 World Champion, and has just recently returned from the World Championships in Rome with a very hard-earned silver medal. To top it all off, she's also a Team Mizuno ambassador and founder of an elite beach volleyball training program. Sophie Bukovec, welcome to the show, man. What a resume. Holy man.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to get the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Oh, GG, I was like, I might need to take a break after this. This is like...
I was feeling some CPR going on.
But we're saying there's so much to cover here because you're doing so much. You're you're playing. But let's start with the World Championships because this just happened.
Yeah.
Silver medal in Rome. It's unreal. And that was an intense tournament. And as we were following along, kind of seeing from the beginning, you guys were crushing it. And just the intensity as it got closer down to quarterfinals and semifinals and then finals. Walk us through that tournament, please.
Yeah, so that was my first senior world championships. I was familiar with the youth worlds growing up, but I've been off the scene for a little bit. And to be honest, Brandy and I, my beach partner, weren't even sure we were going to qualify. You qualify the top 23 teams naturally and a couple through the continent. And we were team 22 to qualify. So it was very, the bottom wire, and we were there. We had a couple of things that kind of happened throughout our season that prevented us from getting ranked higher. There was a tournament in Doha that we weren't able to attend, so that affected our rankings. And there was a lot of missed opportunities that kind of happened that made us unsure that we were even going to qualify for the World Championships. So making it in itself was a win for us. We were just happy to qualify. And then when we got to the event, our game plan was just to play good quality volleyball consistently and make that the focus. And as the tournament kind of progressed, the level that we got to never felt like overwhelming or monumental. Even when we reached the quarters and the semis and then the finals, we just kept going back to just playing good quality volleyball. And then we ended up on the podium. So it was just, it didn't feel massive, but it was such an amazing accomplishment for us and for our team.
So how... making it sound like it was nothing. Oh, we just squeaked in there and then we figured it out. Anyway, how do you stay mentally engaged? Like what you described, I would describe as you guys can stay with the process over outcome. That's exactly what it sounded like. You guys, you went like, hey, we're just going to trust our process. We're going to enjoy this, this process, and we're going to see what happens.
Yeah. Which
is probably cool at the beginning. And then you start winning. And then does it start creeping in like expectations and seedings? And does that start creeping in? How do you keep those demons at bay, or how do you embrace them? How did you guys do that?
So Brandy and I are a new team. So this is our first year playing together. We'd only played together for about 4 months leading up to the World Championships. I'm playing a whole new position. This is my first year as a defender, playing on the right side. So we're focusing on getting comfortable in our team and in our positions. And we never really thought about the expectations in terms of results. So that kind of helped us stay grounded throughout the tournament, where it was genuinely just focusing on, do you feel a little bit better today playing defense on the right side? Do you feel a little bit better as a team? How was your serving? Like all of the little minute details that then turn into wins, that genuinely was the focus. And then each of those just became wins in themselves. So the process was definitely our main focus.
And I'm going to piggyback on that. And how you guys must have, we say adversity is what creates better teams and better friendships and better relationships. So I'm sure not necessarily adversity in the sense of like you guys were successful, but the wins, and I'm sure there's some adversity throughout. How did that affect? And you guys must have got closer and closer after every point, I'm assuming, like different position, new team.
Yeah, so there's a lot of adversity that happened kind of leading up to the World Championships. So, oh, am I back? Okay. So,
Nope. Hang on, we'll just pause this because we're frozen.
am I okay now?
Yep.
We're okay. So in terms of adversity, us not to play in that tournament in Qatar, that affected our overall world ranking. There was a concussion that I had endured at the beginning of the season at our very first. All of the goals that we kind of set throughout the season, there was a hiccup that kind of kept following us. So we just learned to kind of come together as a team and battle through all these difficult moments as a partnership. And then with our coach, Rico. And then when we were able to find success at the World Championships, it felt that much sweeter because we had gone through so much as a team, made really tough decisions, and still found a way to qualify and then be successful at the World Championships.
Wow. And to follow up with what JG is saying, like it seems like your focus was right. Like control the controllable is something we always talk about. So the idea of you going into a new position and let's just focus on that. You're not talking about we have to beat the opponent that's across the net from us. You're talking about beating the opponent that's inside of us, within our own team, that adversity, that challenge, that obstacle. And you attacked that, which allowed you guys to be successful versus the opponents across the net. And right?
Yeah, I think for me, especially, it's finding the why of why you play. And I know that people talk about that all the time, but for me, I love the moments when you surprise yourself. And if I go back and I focus on that, then the wins and losses actually don't matter. Right. I know. And again, a lot of people also say that too. Right. But it really does come down to, did I do something today that I didn't do yesterday? And then that becomes my new benchmark. How do I supersede that tomorrow? So in each of the matches that we were playing, there was a moment where I was like, okay, I did that. Great. Now, how do I beat that tomorrow?
Wow.
So that was just kind of what the baseline focus was.
JG, doesn't that sound like something else we say all the time? Better tomorrow than I was today, and that it's just better and better the next day. Like that's all it is. Better today than yesterday, right? So it's just I love it. Like it's just so, and to do that at that stage. So here's as you're talking about this is like you're right. These are all the things that lead to success, and we've had a lot of successful people on the show that talk about that in careers. You're talking about it in the most demanding moments of your career in tournaments, world stage against world-class athletes, sticking to how hard is it to stick to that plan? When you're looking across the net from you and you have outstanding opponents from across the globe, how do you avoid that distraction? Like, so they get starstruck. Like, you know, as an athlete, do you get starstruck at all from facing other people? You're like, oh my God, that I used to idolize that player as a collegiate athlete.
I mean, I definitely respect like almost all of the athletes on the world tour. They're all phenomenal athletes and they're there for a reason. But I wouldn't say that there's any moment where I've looked at someone and I've been like, that's like, I've idealized them, because it kind of puts them on a separate category and on that pedestal. And it's something hard for you to also beat if you do that to yourself. So for me, it's just a level of respect and knowing that I'm also at that stage. So I'm also capable of doing the things that they're doing, which took me a long time to get comfortable with. There's this feeling of belonging when you start playing on tour, because it's such a grueling kind of thing to go through the qualifiers and then make your mark on the main draws and the way that the system is. So finding that was definitely difficult. It takes years to do, but once you are able to reach that level, it's just being secure enough in what you bring to the game and what you bring to the table. And then it just becomes fun to be able to play somebody who's also competitive, who also does phenomenal things. Those rallies are the ones that are memorable. So
Sophie, to get to that point, this is just me talking out loud, to get to that point, you know, process over outcome, and you're comfortable and you're a little more comfortable in your skin, had to come with some success. Would you say, now if we rewind back to USC, winning some championships kind of builds your self-esteem? You know, I'm assuming, you know, you're a freshman, you wouldn't have this mindset as a freshman. So that's something that kind of came with, right? Successful people, like success leaves clues. Like, can we go back now a little bit and how you at your time at USC kind of maybe helped shape you today, if it did or didn't? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, USC was an interesting experience because we were very successful with our team. Our team was incredible. We were very competitive. We had such a good group of girls. There was an end objective, and we were all very much on board with what the end objective was. But within that, what a lot of people don't recognize is there's actually a lot of internal battle and internal competition that goes on because you are fighting for pair spots. So you have 5 pairs that compete, and you have to win 3 out of the 5 in order to win the full duel. But you're constantly battling your teammates to be in that position, right? To be seated as the 1 pair, to be seated as the 2 pair. So I think that internal competition is what kind of prepared me for competing at a really high level on the world tour, because you were doing it every single day in practice. It wasn't like you were just doing that on weekends in game mode. It was every single day you were showing up and you were trying to outbeat your own teammates. So It's a really interesting dynamic, but it definitely helped.
Some of the best teams, Mark, I'm assuming the same boat, some of the best teams I played on, and it's not fun, I'm sure, from a parent's perspective if you're in youth sports, but having somebody behind you or pushing you, or you're pushing somebody, is how you develop and you become better as an athlete. I think even as a person, basically, is having somebody kind of pushing you, not just, hey, I'm going to be the number 1, I'm going to be the center every single time. Even I can screw up, I can shank balls, I can miss my serve, I'm still going to be that person. There's not much growth. Just my personal opinion, if you want to jump in on that, Marker. So
yeah, well, like exactly what you say. I think having that competition keeps you dialed in and focused to continuously trying to achieve a little bit more, right? Like it's the only way you get better. Surround yourself with better people.
Yeah. I come from a family of like 3 other athletes. So I have a family of 4 siblings, and we're all very competitive. So everything was a competition, like running home to be the first one to eat dinner because, everyone was running off to their sport. So you never know if you're going to even make it to dinner, right? Like there's competitions and everything. So my whole life was winning little competitions here and there. So when it comes to major events, they seem so insignificant now. So that's just kind of the mindset there.
So speaking of mindset, you've set this up nicely for me because it's something that we talk a lot about, and we talk about this around our dinner table about like momentum swings and stuff like that. And our argument in our family is that volleyball probably is the biggest momentum game of all sports. Yeah, JJ, you've coached, so would you agree? And now I want to ask you is in the World Championships and how you handled this is like there's a lot of momentum shifts throughout the tournament. Different. How as a team do you and Brandy handle that, and your coach? And to me it's just like baseball, you get an inning to regroup. In hockey, you got a period, the Zamboni goes out, cleans the ice, you got these breaks. Beach volleyball, like you got to deal with these momentum swings point to point. So on a mental performance standpoint, how do you mentally deal with that?
I would say that Brandy and I have the perspective of the game's never over, like ever. The way that beach volleyball and volleyball works, the momentum swings are so huge. You can have a blowout in one set. The next team then blows out the other team, and then it's a close 3rd set. Like that's not unheard of in beach volleyball. So just understanding that the game is never over for either team. Even if you're up by 5 or you're down by 5, you can't just kind of coast. Brandy and I tell each other, you can't sleep on anybody. That's kind of our thing. If you claim to get an easy draw, you can't sleep on teams because they're all at this top level for a reason. So you have to come out like it's the top team every time you're playing somebody. Of course, we have our own individual strategies that work for us personally to combat like bad momentum, or if you're up, to kind of settle yourself down. Each of us have our own little thing that we do. But as a team, that's kind of our team philosophy.
Do tell. You can't just say that and tell us what it is.
For me, so when things are not going my way, or when I feel a little frustrated, or if I need a second to kind of just dial down, I actually clench sand in my hand really hard. My face expression is fine. And then I slowly release it because I'm a big tension in my hands person. And that's what I do.
JG likes that one. He uses the same one. He uses the same, really? And we teach our athletes the same way. Yeah, JG, explain your thought on it.
Yeah, so for baseball, when they get a bad call or something like that, so I'll have a couple of things. So I'll have them pick up dirt and literally squish it. But what I tell them is when you let it go, though, you got to let go what just happened.
Whoa,
right?
I've never heard of anyone else doing this.
Yeah, you physically let it go. I have a video of Major League players doing it. That's how I kind of picked that up. So when you physically, because it's a physical release, when you physically let it go, you've let it go. And the other option for us for baseball, we have batting gloves. So when you take them off, you're letting it go. When you lock them back in, you're kind of redialing yourself back in.
Yeah. Just triggers, right?
Yeah.
Reset.
Well, especially because it's a physical thing. Like I hold a lot of tension in my hands and I feel very aggressive when I like make a fist. So that anytime there's like that immediate release, I'm like, okay, you're fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
I find I do that when I'm driving. Like I'm driving somewhere and all of a sudden I'm like this. I'm like, what are you doing right now? Relax.
Yeah.
Now, who taught you that? How did you learn that? Because this is something that is shared through the mental performance kind of realm. And we talk to athletes about doing this. Who shared that with you?
No one. That was just kind of something that I picked up on my own. Because you do have that little bit of time in between points. You kind of find ways that work for you. If it's fixing a line, if it's cleaning your glasses, you have things that you can kind of stall the game a little bit. But for me, I was always like, I knew that my hands were a really big focus for me and a big trigger. So then I started to clench stand. I would throw it. And then I was like, okay, that's a bit dramatic. Like people can see you're being mad. So then now it's just like a slow release that you can't really tell that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But anybody listening to this, now you know.
What about on court? What were you doing on court, or were you doing something then?
On the court, I was a big shoe wiper.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know now. I can't, man, it feels like ages ago since I played indoor. I also had to wear a towel on the back of my shorts because I was so sweaty. So I feel like there was also moments that I would use that and like clean my hands and that.
So it seems like you've always been in tune with your triggers, which seems
you
like
have to be.
Which makes a big difference at high performance athletes such as yourself.
Sophie, I'm going to share something with you. So we work with a mental performance coach. His name is Brian Kane. Works with all kinds of athletes over the planet, professional, whatever. So he worked with George St. Pierre. You know what George St. Pierre is?
Yeah.
UFC guy. So because you're talking about sweating a lot. So he said he was working with GSP and he was like, what's your reset? Like you just talked about yours. And George's like, I don't have a reset. What are you talking about reset? He goes, well, you got to find something that's a reset. So what they figured out, and if you watch some of his matches after he started working with Brian Kane, just like you, he'd have his gloves and he would wipe them on his shorts. And that was it had two meanings. So he would wipe just like sweating a lot. So two reasons that would be his reset. 1, 2, and he said, when my gloves are dry and when they're wet, I'm hitting somebody, it just kind of skims. He goes, now when they're dry and I hit it, actually makes contact. We're not promoting fighting here, but I'm just telling you, like the whole sweating in a towel is another physical release of something to kind of get you to a different direction or level, because you need those. You literally need those.
For sure. I think it's really important to just understand like where physiologically like does that build, and then what's a good way for you to release it, because it happens to everybody. It's almost like pretending it doesn't happen is just a detriment to your own performance. So just acknowledge that like you don't feel good in whatever place in your body. Okay, how do we fix it? How do we help it?
Tools. That's what these are all, tools, right?
Totally.
The more tools you have in your, like it's just not showing up to play volleyball. It's all these other tools that have to happen and be part of the package to lead to successful playing, which is phenomenal. I love it. Now, when you're training, let's talk about your training a little bit too, because you have videos of yourself training on your social media, and it's phenomenal, and I love it because it's empowering, and you're like, yeah, look at this. This is a strong woman who's crushing it in the weight room, and what I see that the volleyball is a power sport. At the end of the day, you hit hard, you have to jump hard, and you have to move laterally and vertically as fast and as hard as you can. Have you always been training at that level and that intensity?
In the gym, I used to hate it. I used to hate the gym. I was a very small, lean child. When I was playing soccer, I was very skinny. I played like for Team Ontario. I was very high performance soccer. But I wasn't even allowed to hold watermelon or cases of water, bringing in groceries with my mom. Like that's how skinny I was. It was terrible. So when I started playing volleyball, I looked like Bambi on ice. They were like, this kid has no idea what her limbs are doing. And so when I first started working out with our national team and Team Ontario on the beach volleyball side, it was myself and two guys who were a couple years older than me at the time. They were probably 17, 18 years old. And they were gym rats. They loved the gym. They loved going. I very much didn't, and we would work out at the same time. And it was very intimidating. It wasn't always the most healthy place either. So I just kind of found like a distaste for the gym. And then it wasn't finally until I went to USC where I had the most amazing strength and conditioning coach, Kelly Dormandy, who made everything a competition. She had this thing called the Weight Room Warrior of the Week. And she made tank tops with her face flexing on it. And it was like an army color. And she was just like, she's so awesome. She had her face printed on it. And it wasn't about who lifted the most. It was who added the 2.5, you know, who did an extra rep of this, who did, you know, the bare minimum, or sorry, the littlest amount to make themselves better. They got to wear it at conditioning the next day. So everything was a competition, but it was in the most loving and supportive environment. So she kind of made me fall in love with strength and conditioning. And then I found Reed Hall, who's now my trainer at Reed's Workouts. And he is just phenomenal. And I love going. It's like my happy place now.
I'd love to dig into one of your posts, and I think it's a very important post, if you don't mind. It's a kind of, you talk about like when you were a size 02 and you couldn't,
yeah, sure,
and you were modeling, and they wanted you in like jeans that you're like, I'm not going to fit in these. I don't want to fit in these jeans. Yeah. I love how you stood up for the idea of being comfortable in your body and what you were doing to improve yourself. Can you talk to us a little bit about that post? Because to me, when I was kind of doing my prep for meeting you, that was one of the things that stood out to me, that JG and I are big character people, because you could have went one way. You could have went one way and said, yeah, you know what, I want to do this modeling gig, and maybe your life direction changes. But no, here you are. And I think there's probably a lot of Sophies out there that were lean and probably, like you said, I don't like using the term awkward, but like you were going, as a teenager, going through a difficult time. You found the weight room, you've embraced it, and you've gone back. Can you talk to me a little bit about that post and what it means? Yeah.
So when I was younger, at the time that I was playing high performance soccer, I was also scouted, funny enough, walking into a McDonald's at Queen and Spadina to model, which is so funny. And
so sorry, they're looking for models in McDonald's. Okay, keep going.
So,
JG, if they were a Dairy Queen, you and I might, sorry, JG, if they were a Dairy Queen, maybe it would have been you and I.
So this is actually hilarious. They have, so the agency that I worked with, this is going to sound so creepy, but the agent had actually binoculars, and they sit in their agency, and they sit at Queen and Spadina, which is like a huge busy intersection, and they look for potential models. And I happened to be walking in the intersection, but to a McDonald's. So I kind of got stopped as I was walking in to get a Big Mac. So long story short, I pursued modeling a little bit during that year when I was also high performance soccer, also playing volleyball. And like I said in that post, I was very small. Like I was a 00 to a 0. And then as I went through puberty, I was a size 2, which is tiny. It's so small. And so I went in for this casting, and the woman was like, oh, well, we only have size 0 and 00. So we can't shoot you. We can't cast you unless you're in a 0 or 00. And I was like, I'm a 2. A 2 is small enough. Like if you don't have a 2, then you're not shooting me. So then she finally goes, okay, well, try the 0, go try on the jeans, see if they fit. And I was like, I'm going to break the button. She goes, just go try them on. I go into the change room and I break the button. I can't fit these jeans on my body. I look at her and I'm like, okay, look, if you don't have a size 2, then like you can't shoot me. So I didn't get casted for that gig. Pretty much stopped modeling after that. And just over the years, now that I have such a better relationship with the gym, I've just, you know, want to let other people know, and especially young women, that your body does a lot for you. You know, it wakes you up in the morning, it takes you to school, it does all the extracurriculars that you're doing. That going to the gym is just like a thank you for it. For doing all those little daily tasks. It's a way of just like giving back to your body. And going to the gym doesn't mean you're going to get super bulky. If that's your goal, great. If it's not your goal, it's still not going to do that.
Yeah. And you could just get strong and fast, right?
That's
and
it.
Just build power.
And just be healthy.
Yep. Yeah.
I talked to some of the girls in high school. Mark and I are both high school teachers, and some of the girls, when we do fitness classes, and like they think they're going to grow beards and deep voices when they hit the weight room. I'm like, whoa. I don't know what show you've been watching, but like, that's the last thing that's, you know,
that's honestly what a lot of like young females perceive is what's going to happen if they go to the gym. And I just want to be like, that's not the case.
Well, good for you for posting it and promoting that concept though, because a lot of people don't do it. And I think that's super important. Deviates a little bit what we're talking about, but it is important to talk about
No, it does not. We're on track, people.
We're trying to say,
well, it's funny you talk about that.
I'm just sorry. I just had an image, JG, about you and I getting scouted for modeling. Two old bald guys with the whole day. What did you call them? The DQ, like Blizzard Royale or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Royal
like,
Blizzard.
Well, I got into a fight with the guys.
Royal Blizzard. This is the thing. Royal Blizzard, Oreo, but you get peanut butter put inside. Just everybody go and do it. Go and do it.
This podcast is sponsored by Dairy Queen.
Yeah. Well, JG and I are both catchers. We're baseball catchers. I have a large backside and quads. It's just, and I remember going into a store to buy jeans, and this guy was trying to fit me in skinny jeans, and he was one of these guys that is like a skinny jeans guy. Yeah. I was like, man, like I can't fit. Have you looked at me? I cannot fit in skinny jeans. They just don't understand it. Like, anyways.
No.
Sorry, JJ, I totally distracted. You were coming up with something actually legitimate.
Saying, like, when you're talking about Lauren, so Mark's daughter, Lauren, plays hockey at Dartmouth.
Yeah.
And they're in the weight room, season's over. They're, in the weight room. And I remember her talking, just like she had to go buy more pants because, they're doing deadlifts and squats and all this stuff. And she has to go buy more pants because her legs are getting jacked from that. It was like, good on her. Like some people just sometimes would shy away from that. It's like, bring on the new pants. Like Mark's paying the bill anyway, so who cares? But,
totally.
Good for her to
I get so excited with moments like that. I'm like, yes, this t-shirt doesn't fit.
Yeah. No, it's
like
amazing.
I actually get offended when people call me skinny. I'm like, no, don't say that.
No, strong. You're strong. You're strong.
Exactly. There we go.
Sophie, I want to jump on this because you refer to high performance soccer and then obviously got into volleyball. Might be opening a can of worms. Let's see how this goes. What are your thoughts on kids specializing at a certain age? Like where are you at with stuff like that?
So I think that burnout is a real thing. And I think that if you're playing one sport for your whole life, burnout will happen way too early. I think that it's important to be an overall athlete. So just train yourself to be a good athlete, play a lot of sports as much as you can. And then when you find one that you fall in love with, whatever age that is, then do it. So for me, it was volleyball when I was 16. But before that, I was a really big soccer player. I played basketball in high school. I played all of the sports that you can in high school. But I think that especially for volleyball, because it's so technical, that you actually don't appreciate how technical and the kind of the chess game that comes along with volleyball until later in life. So people can actually get deterred from playing volleyball because it's not fun. Like basketball or soccer where it's like constantly stimulating and you're doing something all of the time. So that would kind of be my thoughts with that.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And now here's what I want to go back to the team thing, because although you have said that you haven't played indoors in a long time, and you talk about your teammate Brandy and you got a coach, a lot of people just say, well, it's just two people playing volleyball, but it's more than it is a team. How is it harder? Like if you played soccer and you got 11 people on there, like say you got 18 people on a soccer team versus the two of you plus a coach, how is that dynamic different? And how is it better, challenging in some ways? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, how does that equate? Like, do you have to have a specific skill set of people set to be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a lot of partnerships in my career, and there are some where personality wise, we did not get along, which was a challenge. Of course, you want to like the person that you're playing with. If you're both under the understanding of this is business and there's an end objective and that goal is to win and you can perform and do that, that's great. For Brandy and I, there's more than that. It's a friendship. You're a person first, and then you also just happen to be a phenomenal volleyball player. So that's incredible. What I do like telling people, especially with beach volleyball, because it is just two people, is it's kind of like a marriage, but there's a goal at the end of it. So you're not just like coexisting and trying to be happy. You're like trying to get a gold medal at the Olympics. So it does come with its challenges, especially as a beach volleyball player. You're traveling with this person constantly. So Brandy and I travel everywhere. So does our coach Rico. And we share a hotel room everywhere we travel. We have to play together. So you're seeing a lot of the same person. So being as direct and open and honest as you can be with that person is very helpful. Understanding that you do need your own personal space. But with Brandy and I, we've just been very direct with our communication off the bat. And that's just how our relationship has been successful thus far. So
Good relationships build successful teams, right? And no,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
whether it's 2 or whether it's 20, it's the same principles apply. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Now you are also coaching. So
Yes.
this is which you're coaching at the university level, which is really cool. So as a coach yourself, like, do you apply some of the techniques that are in your from your game to your coaching and from your coaching to your own game? Is it hard to shut it off, turn off coaching and becoming the player, or shut off the player and become the coach?
I think that they go hand in hand and that they help each other. So I teach all of my athletes, regardless of age, the exact same things that I'm being taught or the exact same things that I do. The wording may be different, the progressions may be different, but I want to teach the 12-year-olds the same things that I'm doing now so that they don't have to relearn anything kind of going on forward. But I have found that my own game has gotten better because I can see things that other athletes are doing that I'm coaching. And I'm like, oh, wait, I do that. And I'm such a visual learner that for me is really helpful. So coaching has actually made me a better player. And I'm hoping that my coaching has made athletes better players. So I think they kind of go hand in hand. But no, I love coaching. It's one of my favorite things to do.
And JG and I had a hard time. We've admitted to this in numerous shows. When we transitioned from being collegiate athletes to becoming average Joes, it was really and being coaches.
Speak for yourself.
He's like,
Yeah,
I'm
you're right.
so
Sorry.
amazing.
We're cousins, so we'd like to banter a little bit like this.
There we go.
But it's tough, and to me, you're doing both at a high level right now, which is very unique. It's really unique and it's impressive. Like, tell us a little bit more about the Northern Elite, because I think it's kind of a cool situation for you.
Yeah, so I found that there was a need as a collegiate volleyball player when I was playing to have a place to train at a high performance level and keep that same NCAA standard when I came home in the summer. So there wasn't really any place for us to get that good quality training. So because I saw that there was a need, I decided to fill it. So I started the program called the Northern Elite to kind of bridge the gap between what our youth volleyball programs are doing now and what the NCAA truly does. And because I played, OUA indoor, NCAA beach, I've done all that you can for female volleyball in North America. So if you want to have an understanding of what one level looks like, I have a very good idea of what it looks like because I did it. So I had a lot of parents asking me questions before the Northern Elite actually started about what it looked like, what the process was like, how intense the training was. So to kind of answer the rest of the questions, I just created a program to fill that and to kind of prep athletes so that they're not starstruck or shunned or shocked when they go to the NCAA, if that is where they go.
G?
I
have a question teed up here for you based on that, and it's a follow-up, and it's basically like, okay, so you're a 14-year-old Sophie that signs up for the Northern Elite. What kind of advice do you give yourself? If you travel back now a decade and you talk to your younger self, what is it? What do you say?
Oh, my biggest thing, especially when you're 14, 15 years old, there's a lot of people pulling you in a lot of different directions, especially if you're a good high performance athlete. Especially in beach volleyball or in volleyball in general, you're pushed to be indoor, pushed to be beach volleyball. Maybe you're playing soccer, maybe you're playing basketball, maybe academics. There's a lot of places that you're being pulled. For me, it was, if you choose indoor volleyball, that's it. Everything else is closed to you. So for my advice to younger athletes would be, even though the door may be closing, it's not closed. Like, if you want to choose something because it feels right for you in the moment, choose it, try it. And if it doesn't work out, you can go somewhere else. Like, I transferred to 3 schools because of that. When I was 16, I had a coach say, you have to choose between beach and indoor. So I chose beach. Then I started to miss the team camaraderie of indoor. So then I went and played indoor my first year at McMaster. Then I missed kind of the more intense high performance culture that comes with NCAA, transferred to Long Beach State where I was supposed to play indoor and beach. Didn't really love it at Long Beach State. Okay, now I'm full-time beach, I'll go to USC. It's not that I'm being disloyal to any of the schools. It's just that none of them, or the places that I weren't helping me thrive. And I don't like the door is completely closed for you, because that stresses young females and young athletes out. So it may be closing, but it's not closed.
I went to 4 schools in 4 years, so
Nice.
I can feel, Cal State Chico was one of them that I went to, so we're a little more north than where you were.
Nice. Cal State.
But, yeah. But now that I'm in the coaching realm, what I got to find out from those experiences, because like it's like feel like you're kicking tires and burning grit, whatever. You just move, and because it's just not your fit. But at the same time, as an athlete, I'm sure you picked up something from all of those coaches at all levels, and the teammates you had that kind of helped form you to who you are. Like, this really works for me as a coach. Ooh, I remember this coach. That's not going to fly with me now. But you had to live those. So I think it's kind of cool you went through those experiences, because now, since you've lived them, and now people can go to your facility, or what can I even call it?
I call it an academy. It's not quite a club, but I call it an academy.
So now they can go, because you have the life experience of what goes with that, and maybe save some parents and some athletes some heartache and headache, and give them the goods and tell them, hey, this is how this is going to be. And if it works for you, because you've been there, it's not just something you're reading out of a book. You literally lived it. So that,
and that's exactly kind of why I wanted to do it. And it's something different than just like having volleyball training. Like, you can have volleyball training at a lot of very qualified clubs in the city, but it's that experience piece that a lot of parents, more so than athletes, wanted information on. Because my mom, when I was choosing NCAA schools, Googled things, and she had no idea what a good school was, what a bad school was. There's a lot of like little minute details you can pick up on when you go on your recruiting trips, right? All of that information I can give to these younger athletes. And for me, it's just a matter of that mentorship and that leadership and being accessible to these young athletes to answer the questions, more so than it is for me to just be on the TV and be a good volleyball player. So that's kind of why I started the Northern Elite.
So Sophie, I'm going to share this story with you, because you're probably in the business world, you're probably going to start second guessing yourself and doubting, and all this other stuff will creep in. So this lady meets Picasso. Okay. And she says, hey, are you Picasso? He's like, yeah, I'm Picasso. She's like, can you paint something for me? She's like, well, sure. Paint something. And then he gives it to her. He goes, that's $1 million. She goes, it took you 2 seconds to make that. He said, it took me a lifetime to make that in 2 seconds. So what you've built over a lifetime, you can probably go to this school has this experience, but you had to live it, where people are not getting the information for free necessarily, but I'd rather pay that now than pay that in my time and stress and all that stuff down the road.
Yeah, I'll remember that, because there are moments where, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
We understand each other without having to say.
Yeah.
And Mark also.
Yeah, I love it. That's so good. So, Sophie, one of the things that we always do for our listeners is we try to leave them with a piece of advice to think about for the week. So I'm going to ask you this here before we wrap it up for you. Can you give them, or what would you say is the best resource or the best piece of advice you've ever been given, both as an athlete or as a coach or as a leader, or whatever however you want to frame it up. What's the best, what do you want to leave us thinking about for this week?
I would say know your why. So that doesn't just mean why you're playing, but I think too, as a coach, a lot of athletes want to understand why, and that's why they ask questions. I don't expect my athletes to listen to me just because I'm an authority figure and I'm a coach and I'm supposed to tell them what to do, because in clutch moments and in crunch time, they have to understand why they're doing something. So I would say ask the questions and know your why.
Great. It's deep. So, so what's next? What's next for Sophie and Brandy? I know you said pre-show that you're heading out again. You're going out to Vancouver. What else? I know it's a busy season for you.
Yeah, so we're heading out to Vancouver this weekend to play in the Vancouver Open, and then I'll follow Brandy. She plays on the American Volleyball Pro Tour, so the AVP. I'll train there while she competes for a couple of weeks, and then our next FIVP event isn't until August, where we'll be in Hamburg, and then our last event is in Paris in September. And then we're in our off season, so then we can sleep.
Yeah. And so traveling, here's the other one too, is I've talked to a lot of pro athletes, and we had a friend on the show, Blake Sloan, and he talks about being he played in the NHL, and he talks about people underestimate the effect of travel on athletic performance. Can you talk? I know I don't want to let this show stop, so I'm just looking for ways to keep it going. But as I'm looking at your we're messaging back and forth. You're like, I'm gonna be in Paris for this. I'm gonna be in Rome for this. How do you show up ready? And I know I think you lost your luggage once or twice in this too.
Yeah, we lose our luggage a lot. There's a lot of hiccups that happen. And I think the more you can expect the unexpected to happen, the better prepared you'll be. So we travel to like 10 places per summer, 10 to 12 countries per summer. This summer, we were on the road for about 10 weeks. I think I flew from like Brazil to Mexico, back to Brazil, to Qatar, to Europe, back to Canada. It was just, it's crazy. All of the travel is crazy. So yeah, you just kind of have to get used to it. You sleep as much as you can, you hydrate as well as you can. Your nutrition is really important. And then it's just prioritizing and periodizing well so that you get there at an appropriate date so that you can climatize and get back to the time changes and then get ready to kick some butt.
We hope you keep kicking butt, and it's awesome. And I know the Olympics, next Olympics around the corner, and we look forward to seeing you in that. And I know as a Mizuno ambassador, I think it's a big deal too, because you're doing all the right things. Like I think you're promoting the sport, you're advocating for female athletes. Like it's the complete package, which is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
G, last thoughts, buddy?
Too many thoughts. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, man. I'm just going to leave it as is.
Well, I think maybe as well, when we come back and the next Olympics come around, we're going to get Sophie on before they go to the Olympics, maybe, or after. We'll have some good stuff afterwards. So is that a deal?
I'll have to get myself one of those cool mics. Deal. We have a deal. You get me a headset and a mic set. We're good.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, you might have to get one. This is the trend now, right? So this is cool.
At Mizuno, get me a mic set.
We'll talk to Adam. Yeah. We'll talk to Adam. Well, that does it for this episode of Benchmarked. Thanks for listening. Until next time,
keep crushing it.